האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
Before we take a look at this section, we're going to read a pasuk from Sefer Tehillim. This is actually should be familiar because it's part of the Hallel, at least when we say the full Hallel. This paragraph, this pasuk, appears in the Hallel. And so it's from Sefer Tehillim, Parak Kuf Tes Zayin, pasuk Vav. And the pasuk says, Shomer Pisoyim Hashem, Hashem watches over, or Hashem protects the simple people. Dalosi veli Yehoshia. I have been brought low, and Hashem saved me. This word dalosi, as we'll see, has more than one meaning. It can be I have been downtrodden, I have been brought low, or I am poor. The word dalim, a dal, can be a poor person or an unfortunate person. And as we'll see, that's another meaning that it's going to take on. But again, the pasuk that everything's going to be based on is Shomer Psayim Hashem. Hashem protects the simple people. Dalosi veli Yehoshia. I am down low, or I am poor, and Hashem will save me, or Hashem has saved me. So now let's see what the Zera Shimshon says about this. Gemara Psachim. Parak Yud, in the 10th parak of Masechta Psachim, Dorash Rava. Rava said a drush on this pasuk. Dalosi veli Yehoshia. I am poor and Hashem has saved me. Omra Knesset Yisrael. The Jewish people said, Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in front of Hashem. Af al pi shedalo ani, even though I am poor, min ha-mitzvos, from mitzvos, even though I am poor in mitzvos, li na lehoshia. It is appropriate to save me. Ad kan l'shono, until here is a quote from the Gemara. So according to Rava, the pasuk that we started with, the pasuk in Tehillim, was a reference to the fact that Klal Yisrael says to Hashem, even though the Jewish people are poor in mitzvos, Hashem, it is still appropriate, it is still, we're still worthy to be saved. So the Zera Shimshon asks, Kosha, there's a problem on this. Mahu haloshon dola ani min ha-mitzvos. What exactly does this phrase mean when it says, I am poor from mitzvos? What does that mean? Ve'ech nikshar zeh, and how does this phrase connect im techilas ha-pasuk, with the beginning of the pasuk, shomer pisayim Hashem. Hashem guards over or protects the simple people, right? What's the connection of being poor in mitzvos and Hashem guarding over the simple people? The Ode, in another question, Lama li noel Hoshia. Why are the Jewish people saying it's appropriate for them to be saved? Imishum sha'af ha'umos heim dalim kamohu b'mitzvos. If it's because the Jewish people are saying that the non-Jews of the world are also missing in mitzvos, they're also lacking in the performance, the observance of mitzvos, just like we are, so then they shouldn't be entitled to oppress us. Hashem, save us from the oppression of the non-Jews, because they're also lacking in the observance of mitzvos. If that's what it means, halo umas ha'olam lo nitztavu. The nations of the world, the non-Jews of the world, were not commanded with the Taryag mitzvos, with 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. The Yisrael nitztavu, but the Jewish people were commanded to observe the 613, the Taryag mitzvos. Velo asu, and they don't always do all of those mitzvos. So therefore, it's not a fair comparison. Umay taimo li noel Hoshia. So therefore, what reason is there for the Jewish people to think they're able to say to Hashem, even though we don't observe the mitzvos, even though we are lacking, we are poor, and our observance of mitzvos, it's still appropriate to save us. The Zera Shimshon says, what's the rationale behind that? Why is that a good case? Why is that a reasonable point for the Jewish people to make to Hashem? It would be a lot better to say, Hashem, we're keeping all the mitzvos to the best of our ability, and that's why we're worthy of being saved. Not Hashem, we're poor and lacking in our observance of mitzvos, and that's why it's appropriate to save us. So that's really the fundamental question here, which is, what exactly is meant by this Gemara in Psachim, in which Rava interprets the pasuk of Dalosi veli Yehoshia as referring to the Jewish people, saying to Hashem, we're poor in mitzvos, and apparently that's why we're worthy of being saved. What does that mean? Continuing on. V'isa b'medrash Yalkut. It states in the Medrash Yalkut Shimoni, al pasuk kaved es avicha v'yesimecha, on the pasuk that refers to the mitzvah to honor one's father and one's mother. V'zeh l'shono, and this is the language of the Yalkut Shimoni. Kesiv, it quotes a pasuk. Orach chayim pentefales. Now this is a pasuk, kind of a cryptic pasuk that's hard to understand. It comes from Sefer Mishlei. I'm going to read the whole pasuk because the Zera Shimshon is going to refer to different, the other words in this pasuk as well. This is Mishlei Perek Hey, pasuk Vav. And the pasuk says, Ragleha Yordos Maves. I'm sorry, that's the pasuk before the pasuk he's referring to. This is pasuk Vav. Orach Chayim Pentefales, the path of life, lest it be counted or weighed. No'u magloseha, its course moves around. Its course moves around. Lo seda, you will not know, or you cannot know. So as I said, this is not an easy pasuk to understand at face value. Again, orach chayim pentefales, the path of life, lest it be weighed or counted. No'u magloseha, its paths change, its course changes. Lo seda, you cannot know, you will not know the course or the path. So let's see what the Yalkut Shimoni does with this pasuk. Omer Rabbi Abba Bar Kana. Rabbi Abba Bar Kana says this is what the pasuk is telling us. Shelo tehei yoshev v'shokel mitzvoseha shel Torah. A person should not sit and count or weigh the mitzvahs in the Torah. V'roa eze mitzvah sechara meruba, and try to see which mitzvah has a significant reward. V'osa osa, and then do it. A person should not do that. One might think that's a wonderful thing to do, right? Look throughout the mitzvahs, find out which ones seem to indicate which ones does the Torah indicate seem to have more schar, more reward, and assume that that's what Hashem wants us to focus on and give the most importance to, and focus on doing those mitzvos, even if it might sometimes take us away from the observance of other mitzvos. Let's find out and let's focus and emphasize the performance of those mitzvos that have the most reward. So Rabbi Abba Bar Kana says, no, the pasuk in Mishlei is telling you, don't weigh the mitzvos, don't count the mitzvos and then focus on this mitzvah, only on those mitzvos. Lama, why should a person not do that? So the pasuk continues, no magloseha, the course changes, the reward for the mitzvos can change, lo seda, and you cannot know exactly how much each mitzvah that's in front of you might be worth compared to another mitzvah. Tani Rabbi Chia, and Rabbi Chia taught about this same idea of not focusing and trying to calculate the importance and the reward of different mitzvot and then exclusively focusing on those mitzvot. He gave a mashal about that. Mashal lemelech. There's a parable about a king that connects to this. Shahayelo pardes. He had an orchard. V'hichnis bo po'alim, and he brought in workers to tend to his orchard. V'lo gilo lahem sechar netiosav shel pardes. He did not reveal to them the worth, the value of the different plants that were in the pardes, in the orchard. She'ilu gila, because if he had revealed it to them, hayuroem ezu netia sechara meruba, then they would have known which plants, which trees, which fruit have the most value. The osimosa, and they would focus their work and their efforts on those plants exclusively. V'nimtzeis melechas pardes, and then it would turn out that the work of the orchard, miktsasa betela, part of it was not getting done, umiktsasa kayemes, and part of it was getting done. And the owner of the orchard obviously wanted his entire orchard to be worked and maintained and taken care of appropriately. So he dafka, did not tell the workers, look, here's a very valuable, Japanese plum tree, and over here some apple trees that no big deal. He didn't do that. He just said, take care of everything equally, and didn't give them any idea of the value of the different plants, because he did not want them to focus on only the most valuable plants. Kach, so too, ilu gila sachar ha-mitzvos, if Hashem would have revealed to us, to the Jewish people, the exact reward of all of the mitzvos of the Torah, nimtzeis Torah miktsasa kayemes umiktsasa betela, then it would turn out that some mitzvahs in the Torah would be ignored and some mitzvahs would be focused on and observed very carefully and very punctiliously. So the whole point of this piece in the Yalkut Shimoni, based on this pasuk, on its interpretation of the pasuk in Mishlei, is to say, do not make the mistake of trying to analyze and calculate and figure out the worth of each mitzvah so that you can focus on those mitzvahs that have the most worth. Don't do that. Hashem wants the Jewish people to perform and observe all of the mitzvahs equally without trying to figure out the schar and basing their behavior on that. So now the Zera Shimshon continues, the im kain, and if so, meaning if so, if we now understand that point in the Yalkut Shimoni, now we can go back and understand the Gemara and Psachim and what was being said and what was being intended when they interpreted the pasuk in Tehillim about being poor in mitzvos. And that's what he's going to explain right now. The im kain, if so, Omeris Knesset Yisrael Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Jewish people say in front of Hashem, Atah lo hodatani sechar ha-mitzvos. You, Hashem, did not make known to us the reward for all of the mitzvos. Kedei, in order, she'elech b'smimus lefanecha, that meaning we, the Jewish people, should go with sincerity, with wholeheartedness in front of you, meaning we should just do the mitzvahs because you commanded the mitzvahs, not because we're trying to figure out which mitzvah will give us the best reward or the greatest reward. The efsher, and therefore it's possible, she'ani kiyamti osam ha-mitzvos, that I fulfilled those mitzvos, sheyesh letagmula ma'atzchar, that the reward for doing them is only a little bit of a reward. Klal Yisrael is very honest in front of Hashem and concedes and says, yes, I may have spent a lot of time being careful about the observance of mitzvos, which ultimately don't bring a great deal of schar, of reward in the next world. Va'ani nikres dala mischar ha-mitzvos, and therefore I can be called, I can be referred to, Klal Yisrael says we can be referred to as someone who is poor, who is lacking in schar ha-mitzvos, the full reward of the mitzvos. Vehi hanosenes sheli noya lahoshia. And that is dafka specifically, which gives Klal Yisrael the right to say we deserve to be saved. Machma she'asisim b'tmimus, because we did all of the mitzvos, we observed all of the mitzvos, again, with simplicity and wholeheartedness, meaning we weren't looking for rewards. We were doing the mitzvahs specifically, Hashem, just because you commanded us, and we weren't focused on which mitzvah brings the most reward. Vehachi dayik techilas hamikra, and this now helps us make sense of exactly what the first phrase in the pasuk meant. Shomer pisoyim Hashem. Hashem guards the simple people. Hoil shehem pisoyim biyedias char hamitzvos. It means because the Jewish people are simple when it comes. They're not complicated. They're not making all kinds of complicated calculations. They're simple when it comes to their knowledge of the reward for the mitzvos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shomram. Therefore, Hashem protects them. Afalpim shehem dalim. Even though, as the second part of the pasuk says, they are lacking and poor sometimes technically in the amount of schar they should get. Shekimu ha-mitzvah shesachar and muat. Because they fulfilled lots of mitzvos which don't necessarily bring the highest reward. The od yesh lomar, and you could take it a step further and say, Hashem noson l'psoyim din shomer hapardes. In order to use that mushal from the Yalkut Shimoni, Hashem gives the simple people, Klal Yisrael, referring to Klal Yisrael, the law. He treats them as if they're under the law of the guards inside of the king's orchard. She'eno yochol leda ezo netia sechara meruba v'chule. The guards have no way of knowing which plants have the most value, because the king, the owner of the pardes, specifically refrained from telling them the value of the different plants and the trees and the fruits. And so therefore, since those Shomrim didn't even know and weren't told that information, of course, they took care of everything and had no idea of which were worth more. And so the Zera Shimshon is saying, based on that whole piece in the Yalkut Shimoni, we now understand what the pasuk in that was brought in the Gemara and Psachim, the pasuk from Tehillim, from Hallel, is teaching us. It's teaching us that Bnei Yisrael has a right to say in front of Hashem, save us, dafka, because we are psayim, we're simple people in our approach to the mitzvos. Don't try and calculate their rewards. We keep all of them equally. And therefore, we understand we might be poor, we might be lacking in our sechar for the mitzvos, but specifically because of that, Hashem give us the added protection and redeem us because we did the mitzvos b'tmimus, as the Zera Shimshon says. We approach doing the mitzvos with simplicity and straightforwardness and wholeheartedness. So that is the first explanation that the Zera Shimshon is going to offer to understand that Gemara and Psachim and that pasuk about Dalosi v'li Yehoshia, Klal Yisrael saying we're poor in the observance of mitzvos and therefore we deserve to be saved. What's going to happen now in the next paragraph is that Zera Shimshon will give a different interpretation, a different explanation as to what that Gemara and what that pasuk mean. So let's begin now, and please keep in mind that this is a departure point. He's given us an answer. Now he's going to give us a different answer. Inami, alternatively, another explanation is Yesh Lomar. We can say the Amrinon b'Yalkut. We say in a different section of the Yalkut Shimoni, Al Pasuk on another pasuk, a new pasuk from Sefer Tehillim. No ra'os b'tzedek ta'anenu. No ra'os, which means amazing or awesome things, awesome happenings, awesome events. B'tzedek ta'anenu, with justice you should answer us. So again, it's not easy to understand exactly what these words are referring to. One more time. No ra'os, awesome actions, awesome events. B'tzedek ta'anenu, with justice answer us. So the Yalkut explains, Kol hanora'os she'asisa imanu ba'olam hazeh. All of the wondrous things, all of the awesome things, Hashem, that you have done for us in this world, bishvil hayisurin she'ata mevi aleinu ba'olam hazeh. They come because of the suffering that you have brought upon us in this world. Ad kan lashano, until here is a quote from the Yalkut on this pasuk in Sefer Tehillim. Okay, so again, we see an unusual thing. All of the wondrous, amazing things that Hashem has done for us, it's not being said there because they're due to the fact that Klal Yisrael has been so meticulous in its observance of mitzvos. No, the idea here is that all of these amazing acts that Hashem has done for us are connected to, are in reward for the Yisur and the suffering that the Jewish people have undergone in this world. The Amra Knesses Yisroel. And so now going back again to the Gemara and Psachim and the pasuk of Dalosi v'li Yehoshia, the pasuk we started with from Hallel, from Tehillim, this is what the Jewish people are saying. Afal pi shedala ani min mitzvos, even though I am poor in mitzvos, I can't claim, Hashem, that you should do a noros, do amazing things for Klal Yisrael because of all of the tremendous mitzvos of observance of mitzvos that we do. Can't say that. We're lacking in our mitzvah observance. Still, li noila hoshia. Still, it is appropriate, Hashem, for you to save us. Bishvil, because shehevesa alai yisure hagolos, because you brought on me, meaning on Klal Yisrael, on the Jewish people, Yisure Hagolos, the suffering of exile. So this, again, as you can see, is a different point where the Zera Shimshon has gone in a new direction here, saying that what does Klal Yisrael mean when it says we're poor in mitzvos, but Hashem, you should still save us? Meaning, even though we're poor in mitzvos and we can't base our plea to you, Hashem, to rescue us and to save us and to do nisim and miracles for us, we can't base it on our extremely careful observance and fulfillment of all of the mitzvos. We can't do that. But we do have a right, according to this pasuk and according to this piece in the Yalkut on Tehillim, we do have a right to say to Hashem, save us, rescue us, do no roast, do amazing things for us. Why? Because of all of the suffering that we've undergone. And what we're going to see now, that it's not just the suffering alone, as Zera Shimshon is going to explain, and this is a critical point. It's not just the suffering, it's the acceptance of the suffering ba'ahava, the acceptance of the suffering with and still maintaining love of Hashem, not questioning Hashem, trusting in Hashem, not complaining to Hashem. That's going to be the key. It's not just the fact, kind of the physical fact of undergoing suffering. It's Yisurin ba'ahava, undergoing suffering and still loving Hashem fully and trusting in Hashem fully. And you'll see that as we continue. V'chein matzinu, and so we find she'amru zichronim levracha b'perek Testa Shabbos. We see this an idea in the 9th parak of Masechta Shabbos. Hane'elovim ve'enam olvim. The Gemara talks about people who are insulted, but they do not insult others. They don't even insult back the people who insulted them. Shomim cherposam. They hear themselves being accused, being shamed, being embarrassed. Ve'enam meshivim, and they do not respond ve'onim and answer these things. So imagine people who, even though they're insulted, they don't respond back. They don't respond at all. They don't insult anyone else. And then they are humiliated and embarrassed. And then they maintain their composure. They don't respond. They don't say anything, and they do nothing to the people who are insulting them and embarrassing them and humiliating them. No response. Usmeichim biyisurin. And not only that, but they remain happy during their suffering. Here they are being insulted, and here they are being embarrassed and humiliated and tormented, and they don't respond to it at all, and they're smeichim biyisurin. They remain happy, they're besimcha, even though they're undergoing suffering. Aleihem akosav omer. About them, the pasuk says, this is a pasuk from Sefer Shoftim in the Shiras Devora, in the Shira that Devora, the prophetess Devora HaNeviah, sings. And the pasuk says, Ve'ohavav kitzeis Hashemesh b'gvuraso. And the ones who love Hashem are like the sun when it comes out in its strength. Like the people who love Hashem are glorious and bright and full of light and beauty, like the sun when it rises in its strength in the morning. That is referring, according to this Gemara in Masechta Shabbos, to people who reach such a high madrega that they undergo all of this torment and suffering, humiliation. They don't respond and they remain besimcha. Bekasha, and the Zera Shimshon says, there's a little thing we need to ask and understand here. Ma inyan yitzias hashemesh ledevarim elu. What exactly is the specific connection between the sun coming up in the morning and these matters, meaning the people who get insulted and don't respond, the people who are humiliated and tormented that are being referred to in this Gemara in Masechta Shabbos that the Zera Shimshon's quoting? Why, in other words, why specifically did the Gemara connect them to the sun rising in the morning? There are lots of things that could have been said to say they're very righteous. There all kinds of things could have been said, but why specifically a comparison to the sun rising in the morning? V'yesh lomar, and we can say shemi shehu ne'ela v'nivzeh, someone who is insulted and embarrassed. Mi b'nei adam, from people, v'hu eino ole v'eino mevazeh, and he does not insult anyone back, and he doesn't embarrass anyone in return. Hu choshev belibo, he certainly is thinking in his heart, not out loud, not verbalizing it, but thinking in his heart. How is it that Hashem is not calling to task and punishing these insulters, my tormentors, these people humiliating me, embarrassing me, and tormenting me? So a person is certainly going to think that. That's a natural thing for a person to think. Hashem why isn't Hashem calling these people to task and punishing them? Why is the torment sometimes continuing? Hoil shehu ovo shelo kadin. Since this person is embarrassing him and humiliating him for no reason, right? If the victim did something that we can understand that in some way provoked these people to torment him or embarrass him or humiliate him, then we understand that's a different situation. But a completely innocent victim who's being insulted and embarrassed and tormented, even though he's not responding, which the Zera Shimshon says is well, according to this Gemara in Shabbos, is an amazing thing and a tremendous madrega. Certainly he thinks in his mind and his heart to himself, how come Hashem isn't ending this by punishing these people? But nonetheless, he doesn't say that. He doesn't complain to Hashem. It's only belibo. It's only in his heart. Dum Yilamaidi, I'm reading B'Medrash Rabbah. This is similar to what was said in another piece in the Medrash Rabbah. Al pasuk Kates called Basar Bo Lefonai. On the pasuk that we know well from towards the end of Parshas Bereshis, when Hashem says the end of mankind, the end of flesh is in front of me, meaning Hashem says, I need to bring the mabul, I need to bring a flood to things have gotten so terrible and so horrific, I need to wipe almost all of mankind out. So on that pasuk, the Medrash Rabbah says, Meirov ashukim yaziku yishavu mizroa rabbi. Okay, this is a pasuk, as you can see, from Eov, and again, it's a pasuk that's not easy to understand. But let's take a look at it. Let's do a simple translation, and then we'll see that there's a very a delicate and a point being made here. Meirov ashukim yaziku. From the many oppressors, they cry out. Yishavu, they cry out. Mizroa rabim, from the arm, meaning the arm of oppression. Rabim, of the many. So the pasuk at face value seems to be repetitive. It seems to say the same thing twice with slightly different words. Again, Meirov ashukim yaziku, from the many oppressors, they, meaning the victims, cry out. Yishavu, they, the victims, cry out. Mizroa rabim, from the arm, the strong arm of oppression, rabim, of the many. That's the simple way of understanding that pasuk in Eov, but as you'll see, the Medrash Rabbah does not understand it that way. Meirov ashukim yaziku. The first part of the pasuk that talks about the oppressors and the crying out, Elu hane'eshakim. This is referring to the crying out of the victims. Yishavu mizroa rabim. They will cry out from the arm of the many. Elu ha'oshkim. This is referring to the oppressors, meaning, according to the Medrash Rabbah, you'll see the Zera Shimshon will spell this out in a moment, meaning that all of the people, almost all of the people at the time of the Dor HaMabul, of the flood, deserve to be punished, deserve this terrible punishment of the flood. Why? Because both the oppressors and the oppressed and the victims were guilty. Elu rabim al elu bechimus mammon. These people, the oppressors, were in the majority. They were considered in the majority, or the worst sinners than the victims, bechimus mammon, in terms of their violence that they committed with money, armed stealing and robbery. That was the sin of the oppressors. That's the obvious sin. The elu. But the victims, these other people who you might have thought did nothing wrong, Elu, Rabim al Elu, they were in the majority when it came bechimus devarim, to violence with words. Meaning, what is violence with words? Meaning, the people cried out and they blasphemed against Hashem, saying things like, Chas v'sholom, if there was a God in the world, then he wouldn't have allowed this to happen. If there was a God in the world, then he would punish these oppressors and he would do something to them. Those people did the opposite of what the Gemara in Shabbos was talking about, being smechim b'yisurin, about the ability to be happy and maintain one's composure even while undergoing suffering. So the Zera Shimshon is bringing this piece in the Medrash Rabbah towards the end of Bereshis to tell us, to show us, to demonstrate to us that there were two kinds of sins that were going on before the Mabul, and both of those sins combined to make the guilt of the people something that was impossible for Hashem to accept, and something that made Hashem feel Kate's called Basar Bo Lefanai. I have to bring an end to all of the people, of course, except for Noach and his family. So again, what were the sins? The oppressors, their sin was obvious. It was the oppression, the stealing, the robbery, the maltreatment of the less fortunate. But what was the sin of the other people? Their sin was, instead of having trust in Hashem, and instead of saying, we know there is Hashem, and we just have to wait for his justice and his punishment of the wicked, they started to deny Hashem, chas v'shalom, and to say, complain against Hashem, and all of those kinds of chimus devarim, verbal sins, acts of verbal violence. Ad shenechtam gzar dinam, until the verdict was sealed against all of the people. Ad kan Lashono, until here is a quote from the Medrash Rabbah. Va'ayin shom b'pirish hamatnos kahuna, and look there in the commentary of the Matnos Kahuna, and the Zera Shimshon references that commentary because it explains the Medrash Rabbah in the way that the Zera Shimshon just explained it. So now we see the Zera Shimshon has developed for us in his second approach to understanding the Gemara and Psachim that we started with, and the Pasuk in Tehillim that we started with. We see now that there is a tremendous zechus, there's a tremendous merit that comes to the Jewish people when they are able to be insulted, embarrassed, when they are even tormented, and when they are caused to suffer. There's a tremendous zechus, a merit that comes to them if they remain quiet and sameach, trusting in Hashem, and they're not complaining, they're not chas v'sholem, denying Hashem and Hashem's providence. But then the zechus can come to them to be saved by Hashem. V'lachein Omar, and that is specifically why, we're now in the last paragraph, that is specifically why the Gemara compared them, the Ohavav Kitzeis Hashemish B'Gvuraso. Those who love Hashem in this way, they are like the sun when it comes out in the morning in its strength. The Amrinim b'Meseches Avodah Zara, because we say in a Gemara in Masechta Avodah Zara, Sha'alu es hazikenim baromi. The Roman philosophers asked the Zikanim, the Jewish elders who were in Rome, Im ein ritzono be'avodah zara, if Hashem doesn't want people to worship idols, lama eino mevadla, why doesn't he just get rid of the idols and the things that people worship, right? So the Romans, of course, were expert in idolatry, and they, of course, didn't see anything wrong with it. That was their belief system, that was their religion. And so they asked the Jewish rabbis, and they said, we don't understand. You claim that there's an all-powerful God, and you claim that this God hates idol worshiper and hates idolatry, and that's one of the worst things to do in the world. The worst sin a person can do is idolatry. That's what you rabbis, that's what you claim. Well, if God is omnipotent, all-powerful, and all-knowing, why doesn't he simply look around the world, see what people are worshiping, and destroy it, wipe it out? And then, if all the idols suddenly disappear or are burnt to a crisp, then people aren't going to be able to worship idols. That was the question that they asked. Yovad olamo bifnei hashotim. So the rabbis asked back to these Roman philosophers, should Hashem destroy his world because of these fools? Meaning, people worship every imaginable thing. They worship the sun, they worship the stars, they worship the moon, they worship the planets, they worship various constellations, they worship the sea, the ocean, the fire. The people in Rome and in these other idolatrous countries worshipped all kinds of things all around the world. So the rabbi said, you really want Hashem just to simply destroy everything in the world because fools worship those things? Ella ha'olam kiminhago noheg. But the way it works is that the world, Hashem wants the world to continue functioning according to its normal way. Vishotim shekilkalu, and these fools that are corrupting their ways in the world and the ways of other people by spreading idolatry. Asidim litenes adin. In the future, they will be punished for their actions. But Hashem is going to punish them in the future. Hashem is not going to destroy all of the things that they worship. Ve'af kan, and so too over here, when we're talking about these Jewish people who are suffering from tormentors. Eino rotzim la'avdom bishvil shekilkulu. Hashem doesn't always want to and decide I'm going to immediately wipe these people out because of the bad things that they're doing. But he will in the end settle up with these insulters and these tormentors. Which is just like these Jewish people who suffer at the hands of their tormentors, but they trust in Hashem and they know that at some point in the future, these tormentors will be punished. This is just like the sun, which is just like the sun when it comes out. Logically speaking, the sun could make the case that it shouldn't shine. Why? Because people are going to worship it. Right? The sun, the moment before the sun comes up, the sun could make the case to Hashem, kaviyachol, as if to say, I don't want to come up. And the moment I come up, people are going to start bowing down and worshiping me. They're going to worship the sun. It's avodah zara. And the sun can say, I don't want to be a part of avodah zara. I certainly don't want to induce and bring about idol worship in the world and people bowing down and worshiping the sun. So I shouldn't come out. And even so, the sun comes out and shines, showing the trust in Hashem. Hashem, the world must go on its path, and ultimately you will punish all of the tormentors and reward those who follow your will. So the Zera Shimshon has shown us that there's an exact comparison, that the Gemara was being very miduyak, very careful in its comparison of the Jews who accept the torment and they accept Yisur and suffering Ba'ava with love and trust in Hashem and without complaining. Those people are like the sun coming up, because the sun knows I'm coming up and people are going to worship me. Nonetheless, I'll keep doing my job, so to speak, and I'll do it besimcha, with strength and with glory every morning. And Hashem will ultimately settle up with those who worship me. So too, Hashem will settle up, hopefully quickly, and punish those people who torment Bnei Yisrael. So just to quickly recap, the Zera Shimshon started with a question, which was, how do we understand the pasuk in Tehillim that's brought down in the Gemara in Masechta Pesachim and explained over there to say that because the Jewish people are poor in mitzvos, they have a right to say to Hashem, save us and rescue us. His first approach was that the Jewish people can do that because they're saying we're poor in mitzvos because we don't pay attention to the schar, the reward of mitzvos, and we just do all of the mitzvos that we can and observe them to the best of our ability without paying any attention to the schar. So yes, we might be lacking in schar, but it's for a good reason, because we don't pay attention to those things, the schar for each individual mitzvah, and we just do the mitzvahs to the best of our ability, b'tzmimus, with sincerity and with wholeheartedness. That's the first answer. The second answer is to say we have a right to say to Hashem, it's true, Bnei Yisrael doesn't observe all of the mitzvahs to the best of their possible ability, but we do undergo Yisurin, we undergo suffering, and that has been tragically a part of the history of the Jewish people. But as long as we undergo that suffering and maintain our trust in Hashem and maintain our simcha and joy of worshiping Hashem, knowing that in the future He will punish our oppressors, then we deserve to be saved by Hashem and to be redeemed by Hashem. And again, b'mehera b'yameinu, that redemption and that saving should come soon and speedily in our days. Yasher koach for joining in the learning of Zera Shimshon. We look forward again, God willing, next week to continuing on Zera Shimshon on next week's parsha.